Good afternoon. I'm Dorian Warren, co-founder of the Economic Security Project and co-president of Community Change. I'd first like to thank all of the co-sponsors of today's event, Reverend Vaughn and Ebenezer Baptist Church, Councilmember Faroki, the Old Fourth Ward Economic Security Task Force, Color of Change, and the King Center. Thanks also to Congresswoman Williams and Michael Tubbs of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income for your service and continued fight for justice and security for all. So, listen, we are at an inflection point in our country. We are facing multiple crises, and we must confront them with big, bold solutions. Now is the time for government to act for the people, and this time for all the people. There is much to be done, and ensuring a guaranteed income to build economic and racial justice is necessary. We must reject the idea of going back to normal. Normal was millions of people already living each day with the uncertainty and fear that those in the middle and upper classes only experienced for the first time in 2020. This is our moment to build something new that is stronger, that is better, and more equitable than the status quo that failed way too many of our fellow Americans. Think of this moment as the beginning of Reconstruction and the New Deal and where they meet together, but for the 21st century. There's a very long tradition in Black politics calling for a guaranteed income. So let me share with you a quote from Dr. King that helps set the tone. He once wrote that the curse of poverty has no justification in our age. It is socially as cruel and blind as the practice of cannibalism at the dawn of civilization, when men ate each other because they had not yet learned to take food from the soil or to consume the abundant animal life around them. The time has come for us to civilize ourselves by the total, direct, and immediate abolition of poverty, end quote. Now, Dr. King went further in his final book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, to write explicitly about the idea of guaranteed income. He writes, "There is nothing but short-sightedness to prevent us from guaranteeing an annual minimum and livable income for every American family. There is no deficit in human resources. The deficit is human will." And I would add to that the deficit is also political will. And we must show that the will of the people is to eliminate poverty, that we demand our government provide for our people at a time when so many are suffering because of government failures. Failure to contain and protect the public against the coronavirus. Failure to support us against the economic consequences of this virus. Failure to ensure racial justice and policing and racial equity in our society. Failure to ensure safety in our schools and our communities. And failure to protect and preserve the earth for our future generations. Now, importantly, a guaranteed income will not solve for all of these failures, but it is one important piece of building a society that works for everyone. If this pandemic is good for anything, it's to spark empathy with those who couldn't ever imagine themselves in a position of economic uncertainty until the pandemic. Standing in a food line for the first time or waiting on the government to know whether you can pay your rent goes a long way towards shifting mindsets. Now is the moment we can finally eradicate the false notion that economic insecurity is a moral or individual failing, and rather, now's the time to show the truth. Millions of people living in poverty or on the brink of it is a failing of our systems, not of our people. So we call upon our local elected leaders to run pilots and demonstrations now to put money in the hands of those who need it most. And we call upon our congressional leaders to provide ongoing, recurring cash payments through the pandemic and economic recovery. And we don't stop there. We call on those in leadership to build a federal guaranteed income to make true Dr. King's vision, to end poverty in this, the richest country in the history of the earth. All right, so what can you do? It's not enough to just talk about bold solutions to advance racial and economic justice. We must act now. This is what Dr. King continually called the fierce urgency of now. So, encourage your mayor to join Mayors for Guaranteed Income. Call on your city to provide cash payments to people excluded from the stimulus checks. Work to create or modernize an expanded state earned income tax credit. You only have to look to California for a great example. You can urge the Biden administration to pass ongoing cash payments through the pandemic and the economic recovery. You can embrace the call of Dr. King to abolish poverty through a guaranteed income by doing everything in your power to fight for this tool with its deep roots in racial justice, whether from Dr. King or to the Black Panther Party or to the National Welfare Rights Organization. Join something and act. Whether it's your local church, like Ebenezer, or your local grassroots organization, like the New Georgia Project and so many others, or Color of Change. Join, act, fight. It takes all of us to make a movement for justice. Thanks for joining us today, and let's keep hope alive by doing all that we can in this next period.